Hey everyone, we are at the end of season 1 of Hopeful Humpday. So this is our season finale show, but we're not going to make you wait too long for season 2. We're going to come back in just a few weeks with more amazing guests and their stories. In the meantime though, if you missed any of the 11 previous shows we've done, in this episode, we're going to provide a quick recap of the topics and just a little bit of their story, so you'll know which ones you connect with and you may want to go back and watch. We'll also add a link to our YouTube channel, which has all of the interviews there, so you can easily find any of them. We really think that these stories are very relatable. I mean, as we were listening to all of them, I think there's so many things that ourselves we could relate to, and you'll see even themes and how they related to one another. So it's relatable to all the challenges that so many of us face in life. So please share this episode out on your social media with your friends, because we really feel like these stories provide some hope that we can all use in our lives. So Lydia, let's get into doing our recap. I think you have our first one.
Absolutely. So our first interview was with Andrea. And she is, like me, a yoga teacher, but she has additional training in trauma-sensitive yoga. So actually, I had taken one of her classes, and I had a kind of weird experience where I found myself being overly emotional after it, and I was like crying to her in the parking lot. So I was like, you need to tell me what you did to me. But it was like a good cry, you know, like a healing, releasing cry. So it wasn't a bad thing by any means. It was me like dealing with things that I needed to deal with. So we were really interested to interview her and talk more about this, because I am obviously super interested in yoga and not just the exercise type side, but also like what it is doing for your mental health. So we talked to her and heard her story about how, you know, she adopted her middle son, her and her husband, from an underdeveloped area, different country, and how he was dealing with a lot of trauma from his, from when he was born to when they adopted him. And she talked about big T trauma and little t trauma, which was super interesting. This idea that like when we think trauma, we think of things like big things. Like I don't even want to list things because they're scary, but like big things. But little like a bunch of little things can have big effects too. So her son was dealing with some big T traumas that she wanted to help him with, and that's what really sparked her interest in this trauma sensitive yoga. So we talked to her about how it works, what it does for you. She talked about body memory, which is really interesting. How like our conscious mind can kind of push away bad memories because it doesn't want to like relive them, but that your body can't do that, and your unconscious mind would like physically hold on to these bad memories. But I mean, they still need to be healed either way, even if you're not consciously thinking about them. So she talks a lot about that, which is really interesting. And then another note that I have from her interview is just this idea that yoga helps you to take on this role of an observer and to be mindful and be in the moment and to be able to like notice things without judgment, which takes a lot of practice, because just as human beings, I think we're just wired to judge. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this safe? Is it not? But when we slow down and breathe, we can, which I feel like I need to do right now, we can witness what's happening in the current moment and not be judging it, and then respond more appropriately instead of being so reactive. So there was just so much good stuff in that interview, and it's so hard to just give you a little taste. Yes. But like if that seems really interesting to you, we will have the links below, so go ahead and check out her amazing interview.
Yeah, I really liked the part too where it's the big T and the little T trauma. And I actually think that's a really great lead in into the rest of the interviews, because I think so many things that people talked about, some of them were big T traumas and some of them are little T, and how can we not judge it? So it was really a great setup actually. So our next guest was Rachel Laheta, and she talked about, she lost her mom to cancer when she was younger, and just the heaviness that she felt from that and how it triggered anger and anxiety and depression and even an eating disorder, and how she just saw herself. I mean, she didn't even realize it at first. I think she said she was really trying to put on this front that everything was okay, but how other people that knew her started noticing, like, you're angry, you're not happy, right? And so this was kind of a wake-up call to her, and so she started searching, what can I do? I need to address this. I don't want to be that angry person. And I remember one of the tools that she shared is a book that she found, and it's called When Your Family's Lost a Loved One. And how she said that book helped her so much to realize that what she was feeling and what she was going through, it was okay. It was like not judging, right? It's kind of going back to what Andrea was saying. You're not judging those emotions. It's okay. I mean, you're supposed to go through that, right? When you've lost something as big as that. And she started seeing a counselor. She said, that has been extremely helpful for her. And from that, as she started getting through that, she talked about how she really started opening her eyes and listening to other people's stories of pain also, so that she could be there for them and relate to them and share her story. And I think that's so what we're trying to do, right? Sharing these stories helps us to connect and understand that we're not the only one. And so she's proactively doing that. And she said she started looking for her mom in other people. So those things that she really loved about her mom, the good, the beauty, how she started looking for that in other people. And one of her quotes that I wrote down, and I remember, she said, life is painfully beautiful. And I thought, wow, that is so true, because life is beautiful, but there's pain involved. So anyway, that was her story, and a lot more she had to say. So take a look at that if that one connects with you.
Totally. Okay, the next one was with Lisa, and she talked about a lot of stuff, but mainly the big thing that kind of started her journey of really looking inward was dealing with having to terminate a pregnancy that was very much desired because of some medical issues that were going on. And she had a hard experience with that through the process. And then she didn't really allow herself to grieve appropriately. Well, I shouldn't say appropriately because that's not like the right word, but like properly, I guess, or in a way that served her. Because she saw herself as a positive person, and she didn't want to be pitied. She didn't want people to feel bad for her. And, she was hopeful, and she was looking to the future, and actually they were able to get pregnant again pretty quickly. So she kind of just like pushed it down, like a lot of us, I think, do with certain things, and thought she was okay. But then like all of a sudden, just like regular stresses of life, like started piling on, like money issues and all the things that so many of us deal with. And she really wasn't taking care of herself. She's a mom, so I see a common problem amongst us, is that like that motherly instinct of making sure everybody is okay before we are, when well, not unfortunately, but when the reality is that in order to take care of other people, you have to first take care of yourself and be full yourself so that you can show up for them. But she wasn't taking that stance, that posture. She was really, giving herself completely and feeling empty. So it got so bad that eventually she came to a place where she was actually making plans of ending her life. She was even writing down passwords for her family. Like, it got to that extreme for her, her affairs and stuff. So, she was even thinking about how she would do it. And in a last like desperate call for help, she, I think, reached out to her parents. And they like right away came over and intervened. And I love hearing her tell this story because she said she felt like she was a 5-year-old, like she was being scolded by her parents because they were like, what is going on? And, she said she had so much respect for her dad, and he kind of showed her a little bit of tough love and was like, you don't get to choose when your life ends. Like, you're a mother, you need to show up for your family. And like, it's time to like, buckle up, buttercup. And she said, that's exactly what she needed to hear. And on the other hand, her mom had that more like motherly approach. And she said, honey, like, you've lost yourself. I can see that you're not passionate like you used to be. Like, you need to look within, like, what's missing? Like, what desire are you pushing down? And it really made her think about that, and how she was so driven in her career before, but she kind of gave all that up because of, being a mom. She was making that a priority. But then she decided that it didn't have to be one or the other, that she could still be a great mom while still fulfilling her passions as being successful in her career. So as soon as she made that decision to, I guess, open herself up to that possibility and not feeling like being a mother was going to limit her, the opportunities started popping up, and, she's so successful now, like getting awards and really like a mentor and a coach in her field, and still an amazing mom. So it's a really great story, and she's really passionate about inspiring and encouraging others to, find their own personal purpose too.
Yeah. Yeah, her story was very, very powerful. And I think I remember when we were talking to her originally, I mean, the pain is still very real. I think, obviously, I don't think that goes away, right? Just talking about it, you can see that pain still welling up, but she's obviously taken control and learned how to utilize it in the best way, which, again, I think we see that in a lot of the themes of these stories. So our next guest was Kelly Feckman. And Kelly's story was one of, being a single mom in an abusive relationship, and how she's just felt hopeless, and got to the point again where she felt like her son would be better off without her. And considering, those thoughts of ending her life, were coming up for her. And she shared a very unique experience that she had. I think it was her mother had invited her to come to church one day, and she's like, okay, sure, whatever, And as she was in church, she said she was sitting there and thinking, like, God, I don't feel you, I don't hear you, I don't feel anything, and she's still having these thoughts of like, don't want to be here in this life. And she said that the pastor interrupted the service. I guess somebody else was talking, interrupted the service, and said he felt like there's somebody that needs to hear what he has to say. And she said the things that he spoke at that time were exactly answering the questions that she was thinking in her mind, which I'm just getting goosebumps right now thinking about this, because it just shows that God had his eye on her. He was there to help her, remind her that she's an important person, that he loves her and he can help her. And she said that really just changed her life. She started reading her Bible every night, putting her faith in God and trust in him to help her day by day, just every day. It was put faith in God, help me through this day. She also started exercising, getting herself, out of her house and all. And this kind of goes back, I think, what you mentioned with Lisa. She realized that focusing on herself wasn't selfish, but that it was necessary in order for her to take care of herself, to then be able to take care of her son. And so, that the big decisions she made of getting out of that relationship, going through all that, feeling hopeless, this experience she had. I mean, it's just, when you hear her talk today, you can tell she's just a completely different person. So really an inspirational story. I love that.
Yeah, and that one is kind of special to me. Well, they're all special to me, but that one, like, I was actually at the service when the pastor kind of spoke directly to her. And I remember that moment so clearly. And Nick even remembers it, because I asked him about it once we connected the dots. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he stopped and was like, there's somebody in this room that's thinking about ending their life. And like, God's telling me to tell you, like, no, like it's going to get better. And there's so much on the other side, and like, don't give up. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, that's like, and he got emotional saying it, the pastor, like his voice was trembling. So the whole room was just like so quiet, and like, oh my God, like that's heavy. Mm-hmm. And then when she told me about it, I was like, oh my gosh, this church, this pastor, like this service, really? I was there. So it's just, I don't think anything's a coincidence, and we were brought together for a reason. But the next one was Elena Jones, and she talked about overcoming a deep depression and really learning how to trust herself. So she was a full-time employee, and she was just really feeling down about just everything. And something that I felt like I could really connect with her story was she was talking about how distracted she felt, that she was even in 4 car accidents during this time. And that really stuck out to me, because I remember that fog of feeling that way, like of when things are just, when you're just feeling so down, and it makes you really like self-absorbed, and in your head, like all you could think about is like, why me, and why do I have these problems? And then like life is happening around you, and you can't even like respond to life because you're so in your head that like things happen and you're like, whoa, like I could totally see myself getting into accidents in that state of mind, because it's like you have to be, when you're driving, you need to be aware and like in the moment and not thinking about things that are going to take you away from that moment. So when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like totally, like I could, like if I were driving a lot during those times when I felt the same way, like I could totally see that happening. Mm-hmm. And she talked about how while she was in the state of mind and she was just really having a tough time, like crying in the parking lot at work because she didn't want to go inside, like not going out with friends, not seeing anybody, her mom suggested her to read this book named Instinct. And something that was a huge takeaway from her in the book was listening to like that inner voice, that quiet inner voice that tells you, sorry, I forgot to lock up my cat.
That's the extra guest today.
Yeah. And so she was like, yeah, like I need to listen, like I need to figure out what this is. And so she really started to listen to that and slow down, quiet down. And she came to this awareness that she was just not happy as a full-time employee. And she did have this deep desire to work for herself, to be an independent contractor. But it was scary because, you know, being a full-time employee has so much security. As we know, that's a lie now, but you know, that's the idea that we're sold. And you know, we have the constant paycheck, we know kind of what to expect. So she really didn't trust herself at all, especially because like her life wasn't going as she had imagined it. And so a way that she really practiced to trust herself was with her budget. And so she got really serious about her budget. She set goals and she held tightly to them. You know, her commitments, she really followed through with them and was able to save some money. And through proving to herself that she could stick to a plan for her money, like she was able to learn to trust herself and say, wow, when I really put my mind to something and I stick with it, like I get it done. And so she was able to walk away from being a full-time employee and be her own boss, I guess you can say, an independent contractor. And it made so much of a difference for her because it's just how she's wired and how she wants to make money for herself. Mm-hmm. So everything else kind of started to feel better, and she really got into personal development, and now she has her own podcast called Cope Queens. And it's just a really, really cool story, and she delivers it very well. She got emotional a few times. You can feel how important and, you know, meaningful the process is to her. So it was a special one.
It was. And, you know, Elena, I worked with Elena for a couple of years. We sat right across from each other, but this is obviously after all of this. And so actually when we interviewed her, I was like, wow, I had no idea, because you would never know that. I mean, that was her past. And she's, when I see her now and working with her and seeing her every day, when I saw her every day at work, I mean, big shifts in who she is and how she's living life. So. All right, our next guest was Nilda Martinez. Nilda she's a single mom of 2, and she was in an unhealthy relationship, but she didn't realize just how unhealthy it was until she started really seeing how it was affecting her children. And she talked about, you know, going back and forth and knowing she should leave the relationship, but how do I do this? Where am I going to go? How am I going to live? You know, how am I going to take care of myself and my kids? But she made the decision to leave, and right away she's like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm doing, you know, where am I going to live? So she started, you know, looking online and trying to find places, and nothing was really coming up. And she said she prayed a prayer to God and said, just, I need you to show me, like, help me, because I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And she said, I think that next day she Googled like apartments and assistance for single moms, and it popped up this fellowship housing, which is a program that helps single mothers with housing, teaches them how to live on a budget, you know, just helps them really get their life on track and helps build them up to be on their own. And she said that was like, seriously, literally a godsend for her. And so she was able to get into this program, and how much it has helped her, building her up to get her out of her depression. And then she also shared how her first experience with us, you know, she joined one of our Hope Warrior Academies, and she said at that time she didn't really want to. She's like, I can't take on anything else. They got way too much going on, you know, I can't take on anything else. But I think, Lydia, you were relatively persistent with her, saying, no, come on, give it a try, right? And so she did. And she said how in her words, she said this made a big difference in her. She said that first time she was able to just kind of participate at her own comfort level, knowing that she couldn't take on a whole lot, but how being with a group of women that were also had the same train of thought of wanting to better themselves and sharing their stories and being able to kind of lean on each other, how it gave her hope for her future. And so she's, I'd say one of our biggest fans, I guess, in the Hope Warrior Project, but I'd say we're one of her big fans as well, just because her story is amazing and her positivity is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, she's definitely one of our star students.
Yeah.
Always participating, sharing, and as well as encouraging other women in the group. So we're so grateful for her, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is Beth Massey, and she talked about navigating bipolar disorder. She, in the beginning, talked about how she bought into the whole mental illness stigma, that she didn't want to believe it at first. She said, that's not real. I'm not mentally ill. And she just felt icky about it, so she just kind of avoided it. But she went through very, like drawn out stages of depression, and something that she did to kind of relieve herself a little bit was to journal, to get the stuff out, right? Get it on paper. It was something that was helpful for her. And I guess she felt called to read back some of her journaling, and she really did notice her emotions kind of really, like she saw the swings. And so then she said, okay, well, maybe there's something there and I need to look into this some more. And she asked for help, and she started to talk to people about it, started to be a little bit more open about it. And actually she was supposed to hang out with one of her good friends and had to cancel because of her wanting to go see somebody for this thing that she was dealing with. And her friend was like, girl, like I am dealing with the same thing. And they were able to connect about that. So it was just like a big takeaway from that one was just like talking about these things is so helpful, because sometimes people that you're actually close to are going through the same things, but because of like this stigma, it's not something that you openly share. But because she, was trying to get help and was starting to share, like she shared, and then her friend felt safe to share, and they were able to support each other in that. A nice analogy I think that she made, or comparison, was to an athlete, and how like if somebody is a serious athlete, like if you're trying to get into the Olympics or something, your whole life has to kind of revolve around that, and like almost everything you do in your life is very intentional to support this, that you're an athlete, right? So you're intentional about how you exercise, how long you exercise, what exercises you do, what food you're putting into your body, how often you eat, how much at one time. Like there's a lot that goes into it. How much rest are you getting? All the things, right? So she compared that to like mental health, that we need to be the same way about our mental health. We need to be intentional, and we need to be doing things consistently to support that. And so some of the tools that she shared that help her, well, first and foremost, she said medication, that she saw a doctor to help her, kind of level things out as she continues to work on herself. So that was a huge help. And as I mentioned earlier, journaling, therapy. She said, no matter what you're going through, no matter how healthy you think you are, therapy, will help even more. And anybody can go to a therapist. She talked about healthy food and how that is linked to your mental health, as well as exercising, moving your body, getting your blood pumping to your brain. Church, she started going to church again, worked on her faith. She got a dog. She got a little one to, a companion to take care of, which was helpful. And then the last thing she shared that is important to her story, which I will tell you about in a minute, is the spa nights, that she took nights where she would do these elaborate setups and take care of herself and take a warm bath with oils and candles and music. And for her, it was like a form of meditation, because she would lay there and kind of just quiet her mind and breathe. But it was also like the added self-care. When you take care of yourself, you're telling yourself, I love you, you know, you're saying you're worthy of being taken care of. And so she, that, those spa nights were really good for her to like find grounding. And because of those spa nights, she Yal and Yana was born, which stands for You Are Loved and You Are Not Alone. And that is her her brand of like everything. She has these kits, it's everything but the tub. And literally, I was it 2 weeks ago now, I used my kit and it was amazing. It's literally everything but the tub. She even gives you matches for the candle that's in the kit, which I totally, so I did it at a hotel and I was like, oh shoot, I don't have a lighter. And then I opened it and I was like, yeah. So she really thought of everything. And I just love the message of like encouraging women to have self-care and like little spa nights be something that you do regularly for yourself, because, you know, like we said earlier, we tend to want to make sure everybody else is okay and we come last, but that's not healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's part of her mission, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And when I got her, I ordered a package and I got it and I'm like, I have been taking baths wrong all these years. Apparently, I did not know how to take a bath. There was all kinds of stuff in there that I used, so it was very luxurious, very wonderful. So I really enjoyed mine. Okay, our next guest was Debbie Kuski. And so in the time that we're in right now, this whole worry and concern of homeschooling has been big on people's minds. And so we asked Debbie to come and talk and share her story, because she's been homeschooling her 2 children for the last 6 years. But she didn't want to do it. She said someone had mentioned it to her and she's like, no way, never. I will never homeschool my children. Never say never. And she said she just couldn't get it out of her mind. And she's like, I don't know. I don't feel right about sending them to school, but I don't know about this homeschooling thing. I'm uncertain about it. I don't know if I can do this. And again, she prayed to God and said, I just need peace. Just let me know, from peace, which one I need to do. And she said she just couldn't get peace about sending them to school. So she took the plunge. And she shared how, the research that she did, connecting with others who were already homeschooling, a big aha moment that she had, and I thought it was an aha moment as well, is homeschooling doesn't have to look just like regular school. You can make it work for you and your family and your schedule. And so now she provides resources and guidance to others who are considering or doing homeschooling. And she said she loves it now. She would not even want to go back to sending her kids to school. So this is a little bit of a different story, but again, these are like real life things people are going through. And I know it was causing a lot of concern and stress on people trying to determine what to do in this environment we're in right now. So that was a really good story of hope, that it may be scary to think about doing something different, but it can also be wonderful if you, look at it and how you can make it work in your life. So I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, also, I liked what you said early about actually homeschooling in particular, but I think we could think about it with other things too. It's like, it doesn't have to look a certain way all the time. And like, sometimes we think about things and just because other people, like it looks like this for other people, I think, well, that doesn't fit my lifestyle. And it's like, well, kind of opening your mind a little bit more, and maybe there's other ways you can do things. Right. So yeah, that was definitely eye-opening, and I saw the benefits. She sold me, not quite all of me, but I could see why. I could see why it would be a good thing. But
yeah.
Okay, so then we interviewed the amazing Donna Thomas, and she talked about a lot. I rewatched the interview, and I was like, man, how am I gonna? But she, I think the overall theme was this idea of kind of like listening to cues and nudges of how you're being kind of guided throughout your life, and overcoming these ideas that you have set in your mind of what your life is going to look like. So I think this is something that we all do, is we kind of just plan it out. Society helps out a lot with that, with saying, okay, you go to school, then you get married, then you buy a house, then you have a kid. Like, this is how it's supposed to look, right? So she talked a lot about how she was on her life path as this fitness professional, like pretty legit, in lifetime of being this example of what these roles should look like. They used her to put a program together. She was part of it. And, she was a former gymnast, so she was really athletic, and she just had this leadership quality about her, or she still has, and maybe even more so probably now. But she was going. She was doing all the things. And then arthritis showed up in her story, which is genetic. And she had major surgeries to deal with that. So obviously she went from go to not being able to go, and had to kind of really reevaluate a lot of things that she had envisioned herself doing. And while, she started thinking about going maybe back to school, but then, she was like, it's not the right time, the whole mom thing, my kids need me, this, I got to put other people first. And then Lifetime actually like restructured some things. And that's really kind of what pushed her over the edge, because now it wasn't her body holding her back, but it was, a corporation or a company, basically like controlling what her position was going to be. And at that point, she was with the company for 16 years. And she just kept thinking, like, how could they do this after 16 years? And she, for a little bit, took that victim mentality that we all love to kind of just fall into. Is like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And so she had a pit stop there, but then she realized, wait, no, like, they gave me 16 years of amazing experience, and just because they're shifting doesn't mean that it has to be a bad thing for me. And she really kind of, shifted, rerouted, and made the appropriate changes. She went back to school, which she was super excited about. She saw it as an opportunity to reinvent herself, and she did just that. So she looked, she looked at what was going on as a nudge, as guiding her in a different direction. And she talked about, a big thing that stuck out to me was she looks at chaos as an opportunity. So many of us see chaos and we think, like, we get afraid and we don't want to do anything. We just want to hold on tight and, hide. But she made that shift in her mind that chaos is an opportunity, because things are like changing, that you can step in and help change it for a way that serves you. An analogy she had was like, if the concrete underneath your feet turns into sand, you have to adjust, right? And then if it's concrete, yes, it's sturdy and it's safe, but it's not changing, it's not evolving, it's stagnant, right? So when something is changing, it's not as sturdy and it maybe doesn't feel as good, but there's opportunity there to mold it, to shape it. So I thought that was great. And another, if you're interested in, she talks a lot about feedback and how to deal with feedback, which I think is a huge thing that a lot of us need to hear about, like how instead of getting defensive, maybe kind of listening and seeing if themes repeat. And she's just got a lot of good insights about that as well.
Yeah, she had a really interesting story. And I think something that stood out to me is this whole of shifting, this pivoting, like something happens, you pivot, you do something else, instead of just like hitting this brick wall. Oh no, I was going in this direction, now I can't, I'm stuck. She was really good about pivoting and shifting for the changing environment, which is a really great characteristic and behavior to have, strengthening. Okay, our next guest was Amy Spooner. And Amy talked about her struggle with postpartum depression. So after having her third child, she started really going into this depressive state. And in fact, on her 35th birthday, she found herself sitting alone in her closet in the dark, just crying. And, I think her husband had called, it's her birthday. What do you want for dinner? What do you want to do? And she's like, nothing, just come home so I can leave by myself and cry. And her aha moment was when her 3-year-old son asked if he had done something wrong and if she was mad at him. And she said that just broke her heart and also woke her up, because this is how this was coming across to her children. She had been in this state and just couldn't, get out of it. But now her children are thinking, oh my God, did I do something? Am I causing this? And she said, no, it's a turning point. She had to do something different. So it really lit a fire under her and gave her a mission to do something about it. So one of the first things she said she did is she went to see her doctor and was very open, very vulnerable. In fact, I think we all know that questionnaire that you have to fill out. And one of the last questions on there is, have you had thoughts of hurting yourself? And she said she checked the box because she had those thoughts of just wanting to just check out. Like it was too painful to continue living in this life the way it is. But she said she's like, I knew I was too chicken to do anything about it, but that's how I was feeling. And she mentioned how slippery of a slope that can be when you start having those feelings. So, and one thing I thought was so encouraging too is that it can be really scary, I think, to say that to anyone. And she had this fear of, well, if I tell the doctor, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to take me, put me away? I mean, what's going to happen, right? But she said that her doctor was just so compassionate, so caring for her and understanding. And so then she started being able to get some help. She did start on some depression medication to start helping deal with that. But she also started doing stuff for herself. She started in the morning. As soon as she woke up, she would list 5 things that she was grateful for. And she said sometimes it was just the smell of coffee. Maybe it wasn't anything huge, but that's all she could muster at that point, but it was just the 5 things that she was grateful for. She started doing that every morning. She started moving her body, going out, getting a little bit of exercise. She said her criteria was it had to be fun and it had to be easy. And so she found Zumba and went to yoga. And so then the more she did this, the more she developed this love and a commitment to her own health. And how now, I mean, again, knowing her today, you wouldn't even know that she had gone through this because she has such a commitment to it. And she's also helping other women. She's coaching other women and helping them in their lives to also develop, manage their depression and anxiety, and how can they take care of themselves. So I think, again, things that we all can relate to, whether it's postpartum depression or something else, the depression, the anxiety, the feeling like I can't do this. And there are tools out there that we can use to help get us out of this. And so those are some that she shared that were really helpful for her. And I will say that after she and I actually had the initial conversation and she shared about her 5 things in the morning, I started doing that every morning. As soon as I woke up, before I even got out of bed, I'm like, okay, what are 5 things I'm grateful for? And it's just a great way, I think, to just set your mind in the right place, going in the right direction first thing when you wake up.
Totally. All right. Last one. I told you this was going to be longer, Stephanie. You were 15 minutes. There's no way, because these women have so much to offer. Seriously, we're just scratching the surface. So if one of these stories at all pulls at your heart, go watch the full interview, because it'll be better hearing it from them. Trust me.
Right.
So last interview was with Ivona Vasquez, and she shared with us her journey, or as Stephanie called it, her quest to healing. And so she's dealing with an autoimmune disease, and, she's a mom. She was really just had it, on the surface, had everything looking fine, but really inside she was struggling. She was tired. She had brain fog, insomnia, a lot of stuff going on, and she was just really struggling to keep up. She actually signed up for a Hope Warrior Academy, and through an exercise that we did, and through just building up her personal development, which a lot of it is just getting to know yourself, honestly. It's not even the development part comes second. It's the getting to know yourself is almost the groundwork. And part of that, she realized that she had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and that she didn't want that anymore. And she actually has alcoholism in her past from her upbringing. And so she was like, I need to get rid of this because it's probably not helping this disease either, right? So she went on this journey of becoming sober and really stuck to it, and it helped a lot, but it didn't do everything, or I don't know if there's ever an everything, but didn't do as much as she knew she could do for herself. And again, she just knew that she had to, set the intention, ask, pray to God to send her information or send her in the right way. And sure enough, when she was open to that, she came across a social media post of somebody sharing their story about breast implants illness, which she had breast implants. So, it kind of sparked her interest. And when she joined this group that they were, I guess, sharing about, she really saw like, wow, this is so many things that I'm struggling with. Like maybe this could be an answer. And after some, prayer and reflection, she made the decision to take them out. And I think it's been like a month now. And she's, she feels so relieved. She feels like she got rid of something that was in her body that was contributing to her not feeling like herself. And so she shared that with us, that experience. And she talked about, how to discern what was for her, what wasn't for her. Because, when we go on this journey of healing or whatever you're looking for, and you go online and you start searching, there's so many opinions out there. It's so hard to know like who to trust or which way to go. But really, like, everybody's trying to share because they're trying to help, hopefully, but not everything is for you. So it's important to, again, like I said in the beginning, that knowing yourself, so that like what's in alignment and what isn't. So she's got quite the inspiring journey.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
So, okay, so that's all the interviews that we did. Quickly, we just wanted to wrap up like some overall takeaways that Steph and I, have from this experience, which has been incredible.
Yes.
I feel like we've learned so much and made some awesome connections, or even strengthening connections that we already had. One thing that really stuck out to me was just how many of the women that we interviewed talked about having thoughts of ending it, right? Of giving up and ending life, and how some of them even had plans or just like came close to actually doing it. And there's a lot of shame, I think, that comes with that when you have those thoughts and you don't want to share, because then you feel like, am I insane? Am I not normal? So I thought like a huge thing to maybe think about was that if you ever do have these thoughts, not feeling ashamed of them, but looking at them as a common sign of just your mental health needing attention. It's your mind like reaching out to you and saying like something's like we're not doing something right, because you shouldn't be thinking those things, so it's just a cue. It's not necessarily saying that you're good or bad or anything like that. It's just something to be mindful of, and just kind of listen and say, okay, like what do I need to change here so that I'm not having these thoughts anymore, right? And another one that came up a few times that I can relate to is insomnia. That not being able to sleep at night is a sign for me, I can say personally, that like I need to look at something. I'm so good at pushing things down. Like Lisa, I'm a positive person. Like I don't want pity. I want to have everything on track. So when I'm worried about something, like I kind of just push it. I push it. And then at night when I can't sleep, I'm like, okay, I need to journal, or I need to meditate, or I need to talk to whoever I'm feeling not good with. And that's like a really good cue for me.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like, and we talked about this before, our mental health is just like our physical health. When something is going on, all of a sudden you develop a rash or something, that's a sign something's going on. You need to get that addressed. Same thing with these things. So these thoughts that we have, and like you said, a lot of times there's this stigma around it. You don't want to tell anybody, but I tell you, for me, just hearing the commonality between so many of these stories of these women having similar thoughts, and even similar thoughts that I've had, it's like, okay, wow. So I'm not weird, right? I'm not strange. I'm not the only one. Like this is something that so many people deal with, which I think, first of all, just kind of helps like, okay, take a breath, right? And then, all right, now what can I do to address this? And so I think that's the key, that all of the women that we've talked to, and so many people taking that proactive step to say, I am going to do something about this. So taking that active role in their own life to try to heal themselves, whether it's from depression and anxiety, whether it's from a physical situation, whatever it may be, but not just staying in that victim mentality, right? But okay, what can I do to address this? And then finding the tools to help them, whether it is going to a counselor, reading a book, getting a part of a community, the way you think, considering the way you think and starting to change that. Those are all tools that we can all use to address things in our lives. And again, that's a lot of what we we try to promote, at Hope Warrior Project, is like being intentional about how you think and how you live your life. Like, we are in control of how we think. We can actually take control of that. So that was a nice, very positive theme that I saw across all these stories.
Yeah, all of these women are definitely hope warriors.
Yes.
That's really what it's about. I know, like if you just see the name, it might be confusing, but it's like being a warrior for maintaining hope for yourself. Because if you have hope, like that's all you need to keep going, and like to find those tools that Stephanie was talking about. Is it like as soon as you open your mind to that idea that you could do something for yourself and you're not a victim, and that you are actually super incredible and powerful, and you kind of have magic powers that maybe you're not aware of like focusing on things that you want in your life and then guiding yourself to them. That's what it's about, is like knowing that like you can make things better for yourself. Of course, asking for help is one of those things,
Mm-hmm.
so we're not saying you can do it all on your own and you don't need to ask and you don't need God. Like, no, like that's the opposite. Like that's part of it. It all comes in together.
It is. Well, and I think, one thing also, you can be doing these things, right? And think you're doing really well and starting take control and doing the journaling and the gratitude, but then sometimes those old habits come back in and you start losing ground. In fact, we had one of our guests reach back out to us afterwards. So she had watched her own interview, and she said she realized she had fallen back in some of the things that she was doing. And this, just watching her own interview was like a wake-up call for her to say, oh my God, like those things that I'm talking about that help me, I've kind of slipped on those. And so it was just kind of a refresh for her and reinvigorated her to start doing those again. So I thought that was such a cool experience. And I'm so glad she shared that with us.
Yeah. The tools only work if you use them.
Right.
Like just like a hammer. If it's sitting on the floor, like it's not gonna build a house. Right. So yeah, that was really interesting, and it almost made me think of maybe that's like something we should all do, is prep for our own podcast interviews and talk about the tools that help us, and then maybe see if we're actually using them. Because yeah, it's so easy to like once things get back a little bit on track to kind of let them fade away, and then it's gradual, right? So we slowly drift back and we don't notice it until like it's like a little late, and then it's like you gotta got more work to do. So maybe while you are prepping for your pretend podcast interview and you are sharing your story and the tools that you use and how, like your story of hope. If you're preparing for that pretend interview and you think it could be a real interview, if you think that you have a story that, and you do, it's just a matter of seeing it for yourself. If you have a story that you would be willing to share with people so that they don't feel alone in whatever they're going through, or some tools that you can share. We are, prepping for season 2, which will be here shortly, we promise. We just want to be intentional about it. We want to get our lineup set so that we can really provide even more value, even though this first season was like anything beyond what I could have imagined. But yeah, we're looking for people. We're looking for people that are willing to be vulnerable, share their stories, for the sake of helping others. So please reach out to us, and we would love to set up like a prep call with you, discovery call, to see what that story is and what's the best way to share it in a way that you're comfortable with.
Yes. Yeah,
so stay tuned. We will be back shortly for Hopeful Hump Day season 2. Will be twice as good.
It's going to keep getting better.
Yeah, and thank you for anyone that, took the time to spend with us, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.